So, hey there, high fashion doll lovers. I am just Christopher E. Bienvenidos to my channel. There's a lot of excitement for today's video, so hold on tight, okay? So, let's break down what's happening, shall we? So in this video, I will be sharing my thoughts on each one of the dolls that were presented at last week's event for Integrity Toys. Now, I'm going to go doll per doll. We're going to have a little bit of comments here on each one of them. And then at the end of this video, I will be giving my overall thoughts on how I feel the event went, if we can even call it an event. And some feedback, if you may. You know, I'm choosing my words carefully here because at the end of the day, I always like to keep in mind that this is someone's job, this is someone's passion, and a lot of work went into what we saw, even if some are unhappy and some might be happy. I'm gonna put it to you like that. So, without further ado, let's get into the first doll that was presented for the Stay Tuned event, shall we? Okay, so the first doll that was presented to us was We Love Poppy, and it was a Poppy that was inspired from I Love Lucy, if I'm not mistaken. Mostly because the fashion and I Love Lucy. I don't know if that's a look from the show, but I feel like the We Love Poppy is a take on We Love Lucy or I Love Lucy. Now, I loved this doll when she was presented, and I also have to be very clear for those that are new to my channel. I'm not a Poppy collector. She just has never. I've tried a few times to get into her, not my thing. So what I'm gonna say is from an outside perspective, because the reality is I see the good in her and in this doll, even if I'm not interested. So just want to put that out there, okay, before we move any further. So anyways, I thought she was a great introduction to the theme. I thought she really kind of put us in a high spirit, if I may. The idea was there, and I loved seeing Poppy in something that was somehow modern, but yet old school. So I don't think Grayscale is anything new, but I do think that Shadow High has recently made Grayscale like a thing right now in this moment. So to see Poppy kind of show us her take on something that's popular at the moment for such a traditional brand was refreshing. And I think that's as far as her greatness went, if I'm not going to be judgmental there, okay? I'm going to let that one kind of sit in there. I say that because I feel like by the time she was released, or we got the email about her, which was months before the event, we were already seeing so many Poppies that getting another Poppy at the time was just like, oh, that's cute. You know, although she was refreshing and different and a bit of a risk for her brand. I think for her brand, being Grayscale was a risk. It just also was not, she doesn't represent the club, okay? So I just, you know, she's not a neutral doll. And although she gave us some great intro, she was a good trailer, she doesn't always hit the mark for everybody. So pros, Grayscale was a pro, kind of a fresh take on Poppy. Negative, by the time she was presented, a lot of us were already tired. So she gave us a so-so feeling, I would say, to the event, where it's like, cool, I see where the event is going, I like it, but maybe it should have not been you to introduce the event, you know? But anyways, those are my thoughts on Miss Poppy. Now let's move on to the second show theme that was introduced to us, shall we? Ooh, during that commercial break, the yawning came in, the eyes are watery, so disregard that. But I wanted to let you know what's going on. So, the week has finally started. This was the first official release under the event. And I want to start off not really with the dolls Yeah, no, there was more than one. I really want to start off with the first email. Shout outs to the team for the creative way of making this fun. I feel like if you are someone who's active in the forum, which I'm not, but I did go to the forum for this event a few times, I must say, there was a lot of fun being had there with the guessing games of the TV guide. So shout outs to whoever over there at Integrity Toys came up with the idea of the TV guide and kind of referencing that and using that as clues, because I thought it was great. I really thought it added to the experience. Now, I will say the negative was that window of time. Yeah, not cute. Not cute. I feel like there was a certain window frame where like the guessing was fun, and after a few hours of guessing, you were just like, okay, I'm done waiting. So I wish that first email may would have gone out a little later and closer to the actual release of the clip that was sent out with the second email, just to kind of keep things a little tighter. You know, news travels fast nowadays, and that window of time was very, 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 very long. But with that being said, and kind of out of the way for the next set of dolls, we'll see. This was the easiest one to guess. I think I allowed myself to think of the rest of the club and go back in time. And I knew a lot of the other titles in that TV guide, so Legacy was very obvious to me. Now, what was not obvious was who was going to be inspired by the show. So, Legacy, for those that don't know, was a take on Dynasty. And I loved it. I loved seeing East 59th Street, which is another brand I don't purchase. It's not my aesthetic. I loved their take on an era outside of their era, but yet somehow staying true to their era. Shout outs to Chris, the designer, for that, because although I saw the 80s reference in the fashion and in the doll styling, I still felt East 59th Street as a brand. So, like, let's say this. If I was an East 59th Street collector, those dolls still represented the brand that I loved while still stepping away from its actual storyline. And I think that's fabulous. I also just love Chris for his masterminding on how to really create more than one look with one look. And that goes for the, you know what I didn't do? Remember dolls' names from this event that I wasn't going to purchase. Because now I'm like, the name of that doll. So that is my fault for getting in front of this camera and not remembering. But I will put the photo up here of the doll that I'm talking about, whose name I forgot. I love how from the naked eye, you think it's just a long sleeve dress with gold in the center, and then it turns out it's a blazer. Like the way that the jacket's lapel to the top blend is just so beautiful, and it's such a master skill that I love about Chris. That she was my favorite for that. I just love the fact that she had something kind of interchangeable. I wish the doll in the red would have had something similar to make her just a little extra. She was great how she was. It's just one of those things where like, it's such a skill of Chris to do that I just love seeing it. Even if I don't collect the dolls, East 59th Street is one of those lines that when I see them, I'm like, oh, I like that. It's like one of those dolls that brings you joy even if you don't purchase it. So, loved the take on Dynasty. Love that there was two dolls, because I feel like with Dynasty, the story is always between two people. So, love that it was a pair. And great presentation. Loved the clues. And I'm going to end this segment with my favorite photo of that clip that I was able to find off on Chris's website. I mean, Instagram. Because this photo is iconic. Okay, let's get into it. You got into it? Great, because now we're moving on. On to the next TV show of the week. Okay, so now it's day 2 of the event. And the clues feel a little harder, mostly because the TV guide was set in an era that I'm not from. So I will be completely honest, this is when I went to the forum. Because I was like, I don't get it. I think I get it, but I don't get it. And the people at the forum, oh, they got it. They were onto it, okay? To the point when the doll was revealed, I was like, wow, they are good. So again, I think this event was great if you were interactive with the forum, because I feel like a lot of the excitement happened there. Also, if you don't have, let's say, let me put it this way. Let's take a step back. If you're not someone that has a doll friend close, or if you're not a part already of like a chat of like doll friends that you talk to, the forum was where you were going to get all the action, because the guessing, the response, it really added to the experience. But if that's not something you're familiar with, then I don't know how these emails and the wait worked for you, because this kind of thing, I think Doll 2 is going to bring out some of the... I'm just going to say something and then I'm going to do this again at the end. The beauty about conventions in person, so interaction is important. So I think what lacks a lot of the times with the online event is interaction, if you don't know where to find it. I'll say that. I'll leave that there. Moving on. So for day 2, the clues come out. I don't know the era. I was a little confused. Went to the forum and I was like, will it really be that? And then it was another Poppy. Now, in her defense, I liked that this Poppy was also not... I don't know how I was going to word that. I like that this Poppy was an alien. How about that? Let's say that. So I love that she was in a different skin tone. So similar to the Grayscale Poppy, I liked that they were keeping up with like switching her up and trying something different. However, something that a lot of us online say, and I for one am a part of that group, which is why I say we. Why is it always Poppy? For us Newick collectors, we know that there's other friends that she has and there's other face molds. How come they never get used? I think by the time I filmed this video, I saw somewhere that there have been 13 Poppies released this year in the club, and maybe like a very small amount of number of other lines from Integrity Toys. And I don't think we as a club would have had that big of an issue, even if we don't collect her, if we were getting to see different molds from that storyline that we know exist and never happen. We're just really tired of the Poppy mold being the only mold being used in screenings that have technically already been used. Like, even if her skin is pink, if I'm not mistaken, the screening that she has outside of her pink skin has already been seen before. So why is it that we're repeatedly being shown the same doll in the same face mold in so many different variations? This is one of those things that as the week progressed, I'll say it in a later date in this video, a certain idea that was mentioned, I was like, I think it's time to start considering that as a club, because it's getting out of hand. And you know how Elise had to go on vacation, and she currently is on vacation? Poppy, I think you need a break. You need a break, because it's getting out of hand. So, what do I have to say about Galaxy Girl? Glad you were pink. Because by this point, I'm like, we're on the second day of this event, and we've already seen 2 Poppies. This might be a problem. So you know what? Let's hope that day 3 gives us something different, because we ain't looking good right now. We ain't looking good. Okay. It is now day 3. Now I'm going to break day 3 into 2, so each one of the dolls that were presented in the double feature have their moment. I really want to present to you, as I've already done with the first 2, they're like TV show card, I think that's what they were being called. Because I loved, again, the details to this event were great. I love the connections between the theme of Staying Tuned and how it worked with TVs and TV Guide. The ideas behind them were great. I think where things felt flat were the products. And some other things, which I'll get into later. Not now. It is Fashion Matters. And let me tell you something. I'm going to start there because this is where things things turned around for me, okay? Yes. I would say that with this TV guide, the hints were, I feel like, a little bit more obvious to me because it was an era that I knew. So I right off the back knew fashion matters had to be a thing, along with something else, which is the TV show that follows this. For you that don't know yet, I don't want to tell you yet, but we'll get into that really, really, really soon. Because Wednesday was a double feature, meaning we got 2 show ideas and we got 2 dolls. So Monday was the only other day we got 2 dolls, but both of those dolls were under one TV show, which made sense. Now on Wednesday we got 2 different shows, 2 different dolls, 1 each. That already gives you a little preview of what's following this show, if you didn't already know. Fashion matters. Family matters. Tobias as Steve Urkel. First of all, this is where the joy kicked in because A, I love male dolls. We don't see them very often. I understand, I think deep in my soul that it is because the audience there for them is not maybe consistent or too popular. I don't know things from a business, and these are all assumptions. And I think, sometimes we wish we were given more information, but sometimes I think some people just don't need information because then things will get really bad for them. So, I don't know why we don't see more male dolls. I would love more male dolls. I love male dolls, especially from Integra Toys. Love their take on it. So this, from the moment I saw Fashion Matters, it was a yes. I love how, with the outfit, we were able to represent the character without doing exactly the same color story on him. And we were still also being able to represent the split looks of the nerd and yet the suave, because that's kind of what they called it back then. I would have loved there to be like maybe a blazer to go with the pants when he wasn't Steve Urkel and he was Steve. But they did that a little differently, and I don't mind it. I don't. I was just trying to be a little bit like, well, it's the one thing I like. I would like a little bit more. So one blazer, just one blazer. Just it. Because, if I take the sweater and the suspenders off and I just put the blazer over the shirt and the pants, I got Steve. You know what I'm saying? But I understand that for y'all, Steve was just, the button down and some slacks, which is cute. Oh, without the glasses, obviously. So, this is where the joy turned on for me. I don't know for anybody else because, male dolls are not a thing for everybody, but they are for me. So, my excitement was high. Things were starting to turn around. I was like, oh my God, are we going to get things that are going to make me happy? Because it's Wednesday. And the reality is, well, we'll see. Let's take a look at the next show, shall we? It's the Bel Air Princess. So again, as I mentioned with Tobias, the double feature was obvious to me because it was the 90s. I was watching a lot of TVs in the 90s. So when I saw Bel Air Princess, and Fashion Matters on the guide, I had a feeling it was the 2 of them because I knew what show they were representing. And I thought they were just perfect. Like I mentioned in the previous clip with Tobias, the way that they did the styling paid great homage without being exactly alike. And I think with the Kiki doll, they did great. I also love that with both of these lines, you represented iconic TV shows in a way that we paid homage without disrespecting. Because what I loved about Kiki, although she was taking on a male role from a TV show, was all of the staple items of that character was represented in this look, although it was a girl. And my standout piece. Why did that not want to come out, guys? My standout piece is the blazer. Like I was mentioning with Tobias, I think the blazer would have gone a long way to make him Steve out of Steve Urkel. And in Kiki's case, the print and the reversibleness is such an iconic thing from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air that to see that represented in her outfit was, I think, the standout. As I'm just, like, I barely have any other words, honestly, because it tied it all in together. I love that her white button-up was a crop top. I love that we gave her like a pleated schoolgirl skirt instead of like pants. So we made the look a little, we made it girly, not a little, we made it girly, but yet we still paid honor to the original styling of that show, which was so iconic. But the blazer really, to me, ties it in a way. So, yeah. Loved it. It is now day 4, and things have taken a turn for the worse. Today's email on day 4, which obviously I'm not filming this all on the same day as the event was going on because I needed some time to process. And day 4 was the day that I told myself, I think you're gonna need to take this all in before you film this video because thought we were doing good. You know, Wednesday really was like, yes. And then Thursday, it was time for war. So, see? Little cough there too. The first email automatically said 1966, and I was like, okay, we might be in problems. Because, well, on Tuesday's email was also 1966, and it was Poppy. Now, I think the hopeful in me was like, well, if we like have someone else from a different brand visit 1966, that would be a cute kind of crossover. We always want to see Poppy in something different, and we obviously just did not. The first 2 that were presented to us in this event were still very much in her era, just a different take. So when this email came, I was like, well, this is scary. Now, I knew it was Miss Independent because I was like, well, that's the title of a song. So my gut was telling me that. And again, I don't know too many shows of the 1960s like I did on Wednesday with the 90s that I was not 100% sure, but my gut always was like, it's Miss Independent because it's a song. And it was Miss Independent, as you already saw in the clip. Now, this particular Poppy is where the war broke out because unlike the first 2 that had different skin tones and were a little bit different than what you see in a norm, this particular Poppy was a reminder of her basicness. So we're in the area you're already comfortable in, and we're in skin tone, flesh. We have a very basic black bob and a screening that I've read in the forum has been used before. I think I mentioned it in one of the other Poppy clips in this video that I was like, there was a moment this week where something should have, yeah, it was this one. I started seeing in the forum and maybe even on Instagram that people started to be like, you know, it's time that Poppy had her own club, and this was the moment where I agreed. At the beginning of this event, there was an email sent that were saying that not all lines were being featured, and now we're at Thursday and we've seen one line be featured 3 times, and no clues that any other line are going to be featured. For someone who doesn't collect Poppy, it's sad. And I will tell you this. By the end of the week, I turned things around from a different point of view, and I'll share that later, how I did that. But I think the issue a lot of times with these emails is we want things to keep us excited, and usually when they arrive and it's a line that we're not into, it just feels like false excitement. It's almost like I would have liked the warning, and maybe the 1966 in the first email was a warning that I was mentally preparing for, but I got very disappointed with the result. She's not everyone's cup of tea. And I think the big disconnection with her currently is the fact that I think she's making the company money from older collectors. And I think the newer collectors that are more social media savvy don't understand that or don't see it. I think we live in a world where if we don't see it, it's not real. And I think we don't see Poppy that often, so we just don't think she's that popular. And I feel like behind the scenes, it's a different story. I think the reason why she keeps on getting produced and she keeps on getting used so often is because the collectors have been collecting before there was a thing called social media are still collecting her. And they are supporting her no matter what. And that's great and all, but that's when I'm starting to feel like maybe she needs her own lane. Because it's the newer people that are joining the club, we're not here for her. and I might be speaking for others, leave your comments below if you agree with me. You know what? I'm going to take that back. I'm going to speak for myself. I, as a new collector, am not into her. I've tried, and I'm just not. And every time that you join and she's just constantly coming up, it's upsetting. It is. No matter how many times I try to rework my thought process, it's just sad to think you're going to get something new and it ends up always being her. So I think I would like Integrity to really look and consider We Love Poppy being its own club. Look at that. I just used your show title. Okay. Because the current climate of collectors, that's just not our aesthetic. And it's a preference, I understand, but she's just starting to take over a little too much, and it's starting to get uncomfortable. It's starting to get uncomfortable. So, as we step into the final 2 show cards, which were presented on Friday as a double feature, similar to Wednesday, the excitement is gone. I, at this point, even don't care what's really released on the last day, because Poppy really ruined this event for me in a way where I was like, you know what? Cool. We're going to move on. So, in a very somber mood, which is, I feel like sometimes the wrong way to go into Fridays, let's see what the final 2 show cards have for us. And let me tell you something. My hopes right now, although I already know, are still low. Girl in the City. It was a little obvious. It really was. It was obvious for so many different ways. First of all, come on now. It's an iconic fashion show, and we're talking about fashion dolls. It seemed like an obvious thing to do. I was concerned, I'm not going to lie, because I remember Janae from the Legacy convention, the giveaway. She very much had a Sex and the City outfit inspired. It was very obvious. So I was like, are we really doing this again? And how can we do this again? Although Sex and the City had so many different looks, because of how the week turned out, I was already concerned. And I must admit, I collect NuFace. This wasn't it for me. Again, a lot of what's been in this video is my opinion, okay? But there's comments below if you want to agree or disagree. And if you disagree, can we not be hostile? Because I feel like people really forget how to share comments. Anyways, I digress. So we get Giselle as, I guess, Carrie Bradshaw. Let me explain to you how this didn't make sense to me. It's Carrie Bradshaw and we're using a NuFace. NuFace was always, if I'm not correct me, but I thought NuFace was younger and edgier. If I'm doing Carrie Bradshaw in Sex and the City, I would probably use Fashion Royalty. That was the first issue I had. Also, Giselle was used, and I think Giselle's face mold sometimes in NuFace feels a little older. So maybe that's why they went with that style. But between the styling and the line that was used, it fell flat for me. And again, I had already lost a lot of excitement by Thursday. That when this came out, I was like, no. Now, this was intertwined with our next show, which I will just move on to because, well, I got nothing else to say about Giselle. It was that lackluster for me. Yeah, so let's just move on to the next and final TV show card. Shall we? So here we are, the final show card, the final event intertwined with the Girl in the City clip, which I thought was interesting because I feel like this was also a double feature similar to Wednesday, but somehow they intertwined this one instead of giving it 2 different separations, which the logistic there, whatever. Talk about that later. So for our final 2 dolls now, because we got 2 of this, it can't be an Integrity Toys event or convention without Jason Wu. And that's cute and all, because It usually gives me miniature fashions, runway looks, and I love that. I love that. I was already unhappy. It's really what it comes down to. Now, I will say, I was happy that Elise was not there. See, it's a small thing. You know, there's a lot of things that we can pick at, but it's a small things that you're just like, okay, well, someone's listening, because I feel like for the last 2 years, we're like, Elise needs a break. Well, Elise got a break, because usually at a convention with a Jason Wu doll, she's a guaranteed, and she was not. We use a face mold that was recently brought into our fold. I want to say it was the Legacy. I want to say this face mold was introduced in the 2020 convention. No, 2021. Correct me if I'm wrong. And this is a face mold that I had from that convention, and I thought I loved in the photos, and then in person, we didn't click. So I was already like, not really into it, but I will say the redhead, which, if I'm not mistaken, I feel like she was fall or winter 2021, and I think the other one's like fall 2022. Jason Wu dolls always get called by the season of the dress, or get names after the season of the dress that they're wearing. The redhead was my favorite. If I'm gonna pick out of the two, the redhead was my favorite. I loved her makeup palette. I love the colors overall, from the hair to the makeup and the dress. She altogether was a look that I would go after. Now, again, I'm not that gung-ho on the face mold, so I don't know how I feel as of this moment. She's not confirmed. But anything is happening. See what the future holds. It was sad, guys. It was sad. And I think from here, I could just kind of go into my conclusion, because there's so little I have to say about them, because... Okay. Let me kind of put my thoughts together here. And feelings. I think at the end of the day, it's feelings. It's more of a feeling. I would like to give Integrity Toys props for trying to find a way to keep us connected even though we're not in person. However, now 3 years in, what makes convention special is people. And no matter how many ways companies try to think that being online can take that away, there's just something about human connection that cannot be duplicated. You know, although I spend my time here sharing my words and sharing my joy, and I hope that helps others at home, I know that it will always miss that element of connection from in person, because there's just something about energy that you get when you're around someone that's completely different. So I think 3 years in, you tried, Integrity. You did a great job trying. But I think this week confirms that no matter what we try, if it's not in person, let's just not do it. I think that spreading this out to 5 days was too much. Because of the window of time between the emails, a lot of the excitement died. I feel like we could have done this in 3 days, and we could have done a morning email, a lunch email, and an evening emails. We could have kept a similar schedule that we would have had in person via emails, and kind of kept the excitement really going in a tighter frame. I think that spreading things out throughout 5 days gave way too much time in between emails to think, judge, criticize, and get your wheels turning about something else that you're hoping for that you end up don't get. It's really sad to think that we have a convention event and there was no fashion royalty. Out of all lines, that one was left out. Now, I don't work at Integrity. I'm not in their office. I don't know what they have planned. I don't know what delays they've had. They have been very transparent with delays. And it's upsetting sometimes that people don't, I think, take that with more seriousness. That there really are things that you can't control. It's really that simple. Everything cannot be combed over or demand when it's out of your hand. So I give grace in understanding that things get delayed, and I try my best to remember that in situations like this. I also, with this event, Tobias was really the only person I secured a deposit quickly. I changed my point of view with this event. I was like, you know what? I prefer to be in a place where I don't purchase something because I don't like it instead of feeling like I miss out on something I love because I didn't have funds. This event came a little close to the holidays. I already have some pre-orders. So switching that angle really helped me really be like, okay, cool. One thing that I loved is great. I prefer to have that one thing that I truly love and I can go after instead of having like 3 things I loved and I was only able to get one. So a little change of perspective can help us go a long way. And in conclusion, I want to say that moving forward, if it's not in person, make it short and make it sweet. And really think about separating Poppy from everyone else. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes, but the lack of new face and fashion royalty this year so far has hurt a lot of us because that's where a lot of our joy is and that's where a lot of our inspiration to keep on going comes from. And the bigger thing with dolls in general is they help us step out of our daily life. So if it's not coming in and then we're still kind of this feeling that we have going on, then it just feels like the world's falling apart. I know that sounds dramatic, but it can have that feeling. So Integrity Toys, if we can do this in person, let's not do it this way. And let's really think about giving Poppy her own club because she ain't it for a lot of us. Okay? She might be for a group, but she ain't for the rest of us. And it might be time for a separation between the two of us. And that is where I end this video. Guys, I hope you enjoyed my little tidbits. My feelings got the best of me in some of them, but I hope you understand where it's coming from. When I get in front of this camera, I always lead with my heart and my soul. So a lot of times, I prefer not to have it all together because you can just feel me, okay? It's feeling, guys. It's the feeling. All right? But until next time, we're going to leave this conversation here. Adios.